Good afternoon, everybody. Is everyone feeling all right out there? Good? It's like tea break outside. Thank you all for being here. And as Gabby mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we will use the app data for cross-border success. But one thing I want to say, there's no crystal ball or there's no one size that fits all in terms of marketing or user acquisition, advertising, etc. But it's important to know like where your app is, okay, at which stage your app is and what you need for the app in terms of the marketing. There are many marketing tools out there. That's what I want to share with all of you today. A little bit about myself. I was living in Japan for 15 years, and then before moving to Singapore to start up Metaps in Singapore 3.5 years ago. And now we are a global company with 8 offices. So who's Metaps? We have the headquarters based in Japan, and then we're now in 8 different countries, Singapore, Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, US, and UK. We just recently finished our Series C funding, which is $36 million, and now we are about 50 over million in terms of fundings. So what do? Is we help partners, okay, developer partners from around the world, come into Asia, or it's cross-border deals, so from Western to Eastern countries, Japan to Korea, Japan to US, and so forth, so on. Recently, our platform, so the SDK, we have reached over 100 million app users, and that includes apps that have been downloaded for over 1.2 billion times. Now, first I want to touch on about the evolution of marketing. So I'll just give you 2 very basic examples. We have the success case, and we have the common case. I won't call it a failure case, but a common case, the average case. So what's different here in the graphs, as you could see, there is clearly a head start for the success cases. And also, we find that a lot of the core users are engaged in terms of the success case. And what's average in the common cases, we could see that it could be, for example, a safe. So a safe approach may not necessarily be good. If it's safe but not scalable, or safe but you can't, how do I say, get enough of a sample size to sort of test the actual quality, user quality that you want, or if it's a limited reach because you're just focusing on one type of advertising method, one type of ad format, or also, when we do app marketing in the past, it's all about running a campaign, ad campaign, etc., and then putting your hands together and hoping for something good to happen. If your app gets successful, all good. If it doesn't, then all's lost. But here, what if you can actually have those app data? You can keep those app data for future retargeting when you can come up with new apps, A, B, C, etc. And also lack of speed here. So timing is it's all about timing in terms of app marketing and in terms of the success. So lack of speed sometimes loses the lifetime value. So it's very important here to talk about precision and speed. So you need to understand the market state, how the market is moving, the trends in different markets. You need to understand your competitors, so competitor information, online, offline marketing KPI, as well as your product. So a good marketing without a good product won't bring you anywhere. Next, this is a very important slide that I would like to touch on. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today will be based on, I'll split it to phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So phase 1, I name it as seeding, okay? And then phase 2 as the growth and monetizing of your app. And then phase 3 is spread, or what you call as mass. So phase 1, as you could see here, the point here is maximize organic and core fans, okay, or what we call as raving fans. And then you have the phase 2, which is expanding the target, doing a PDCA, re-evaluating your users. Are they the real users that you want, okay? And also to increase the revenue. And then for phase 3 is all about awareness. So when we talk about core users, raving fans, who are they, right? Who will be the core users? So usually if we put like a pyramid thing to this. You have the incentivized users, reward users, non-incentivized users, and you have the organic users. So statistics have shown that the organic users are basically closest to what you call as your core users, your raving fans, right? And how do we maximize them? So one of the methods I think you all should know is also to get into the top rankings to maximize your core users. And this also goes to show the Pareto principle, which is 80% of your revenue usually come from just 20% of your core users. Now the phase one, seeding. So there's this very important short phase for core fans and all. You can see here. So there are many, many different ways. Like you can see there's teaser, websites, etc. Using the press, social networks for viral, pre-registration, icon A/B testing. You'll be very surprised. I'll talk a little bit about icon A/B testing to know how important the icons are. Market test, initial boost, ad network, etc. So for example, like icon test. In the past, if you all have seen like on the mobile screen, you have like 14, like top 14 in one screen, one page. Right now, it's like only 6. So that goes to show how important the icons are. And then you have, for example, the teaser, which is creating a buzz and raising fan expectations. So over here, you can cluster your users, A, B, C, or D, and then using the teaser websites, etc., to show like promotion videos, pre-release registration, etc., and then using the viral and SNS. And you don't just channel them through your own website, but also to use the external websites as well to gather all this, like in the game forums, etc. And you could see very good install conversion rates, etc. Now, for the example of icon A/B testing, you have high CTR, high CVR thing, so to verify, and then you place it on the web store. So here I want to do a little quiz with all of you. So there's this initial actual case study, okay, a Japanese app actual case study. You have the initial icon on the left, and then they actually created 4 different versions, A, B, C, and D, all right? So who thinks icon D has the highest CBR? All right, and how about icon C? Icon B? Icon A? All right, some of you feel none of them. All right, so the answer is actually icon A. So you could see here, in the initial icon, you have a CTR of 0.07%, and then a CVR of 1.92. But with icon A, just changing the icon alone, you could see a huge increase in terms of your CTR and CVR. And these are some examples that we did for like press releases, etc., offline marketing in Korea for the Game of War. And then for the release phase, I wanted to touch about, just now I talked about the maximizing organics, right? So this is where the boost rankings come in. So getting into the top of the charts, get you the highest amount of eyeballs, okay, exposure. Because there are more than 6 million apps in both App Store, iOS and Google Play. So how do we get noticed in there? So first of all, this is an example, for example, for Japan. So you use multiple incentivized networks to do a run bus campaign, and then get on the app stores in, let's say, Google Play App Store. And then once you get into the top rankings, you get a flow of organic downloads. And then you can actually measure your eCPI from there. So here, you can see there's different algorithm and different approach comparing Google Play and iOS. So you can't have one method that suits everything. So for example, Google Play, the algorithm special points is all about installs, uninstalls, number of reviews, active rate, number of reviews, and the quality of reviews. For example, are you having like 4.2 stars, 4.8 stars, etc.? And they rate it for the last 7 days, compared to iOS, which is the last 24 hours, the ranking of the last 24 hours. So there's also this top new free category that's only available on Google Play. But for iOS, they divide it based on the time, so active times, and to aim maximize activities. So this is an example of the Japan Google Play. So for example, how many downloads it takes in the first 7 days to get into the ranking of top new free, and what kind of organics you can sort of expect from there. And then in the first month, so you can do your calculation on the ROI and stuff. So these are the kinds of simulations that we provide usually. Similarly for iOS, in the first 24 hours, how many downloads are required to get to the top free rankings, etc. And how fast they can be consumed. We don't only have them for Japan, like for Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Southeast Asia. We have all this. Next, I want to talk about phase 2, which is the growth and monetize. So after phase 1, you get a clearer picture on whether this app can make it or not, whether you want to invest more into this app to make it the next big thing. So phase 2 is where you focus on, like I mentioned just now, the different clusters. So if you cluster them into revenue-generating users, or similar interests kind of cluster, or active users, or the whales, etc. So you start targeting these people. Also, you try to engage them further to get a higher retention, because the longer your user play your game, the more likely the user is going to be spending in your game. So using PDCA, which is plan, do, check, and act. So again, over here, you do a reboost if needed, or you engage with various ad networks on non-incentivized ads, etc. Or I'm not sure if many of you are aware of this new category. So whenever you do an update on the iOS or Google Play, there's this category in the, I think it's in the top page that shows new and updated games or best new game updates, etc. Also doing more exposure kind of thing. Then you have the video ads as well, retention, and then to analyze, optimize, and take further action, massive action on the next steps. So here, in terms of the reboost, you can do a reboost and then measure your organic and inbound users, and then accumulate all this data, all these IDs, user IDs, into your data management platform, and then to use it for future retargeting, whether it's on the same game or different games that you have. Also, to visualize, like you see, to visualize the users, whether recency, frequency, or monetary, right? So, like recent purchase, when did they make the last purchase? Or how active are they in terms of day 2, day 5, day 7, etc. To make sure where they are in your clusters and how you want to retarget them in the future. So one case study in Singapore, okay, I'll talk just about Singapore, but we have a lot from other countries as well. So you can see in case 1, just within a week, they have just over 8,600 downloads they consumed in multiple channels, incentivized and non-incentivized. And the app actually went up to top 5, all right, and stayed there for a while. Compared to case 2, not too big a difference in terms of the downloads. So they had a boost, but just on one single channel, and then the highest they went up was only about top 17 in top new free. So the phase 3, talking about the phase 3 spread and mass. So we talk about mass, we talk about exposure, further exposure. So this is actually combining online and offline users together. So online advertising and offline advertising. So when we talk about offline advertising, usually we think about billboards, all right? But there's not just billboards. In today's world, it's all about like, we commute to work every day, so train stations, subways, bus jacks, taxis in, let's say, Singapore, TV commercials. So TV commercial is actually becoming, it used to be only for the brands, but now it's getting more and more popular for games as well. This is a graph that shows you the time of the day, okay, on the horizontal line. So you see, in the morning, 25%, and in the evening, 30%. People are staying at home and they are watching TVs, etc. In the day, they are usually out there, so the reach is 70%, it's bigger. So you should know where to target them at what kind of time. So let's say we take an example of TV commercials and train ads together. So to fully use the synergy between TV ads and train ads, that's the good part, instead of just using offline like train ads only. This is one example of like Clash of Clans from Supercell in Korea. They do the offline on bus, shopping malls, bus stops and stuff like that. And also like Machine Zone and some other, like in this Supercell did in Shibuya, which is in Tokyo, like the billboards and stuff. And this is interesting. So in Japan, we did a survey. So basically just last month, all right? We would think, is TV commercials really popular? Is it really a need, a must, a necessary thing to do? So last month in Japan, for example, so if we take the top 50 of the apps, like how many apps of the top 50 apps, top grossing in Japan, had one time or another run a TV commercial? So 44 out of top 50 have used a TV commercial one time or another. So that's like really huge. In Singapore, we have like 3 until now. So it's like, it's starting to pick up. And I'm sure like Korea, Taiwan and all, it's still building. So the reason why people in the past, they don't want to go through TV commercials and all, because when you run a TV commercial, you really don't know what's the return. And you spend a lot of money in production, in buying the TV slots and all, what's the return? You're not able to measure, right? TV commercial effectiveness is difficult, to measure them is difficult. It takes time to measure because by the time you get the results, like 1 month later to make your next action. So return of ad spend is really costly, but not anymore. Now you can actually measure the app index, okay? And everything is reflected almost immediately on the dashboard. And the ROAS, return of ad spend, is actually shown in the report. Which brings me to the DMP thing. I won't touch too much on this. So we have what we call the Metaps analytics. If you are free after this, you can come to our booth just outside the door to your left. I can show you a demo if you wish. What I want to show you is, for example, to show you the TV commercial. I'll just skip to the TV commercial side. Okay. So over here you can see all reports. So basically on the left graph, you can see the yellow bars. So that's when you actually run a TV commercial and you can see how the DAU and revenue chart spikes as well. Okay, and those are from the DRP that we gather from the TV agency in Japan. So I'll be happy to, my team is outside as well, so I'll be happy to run you guys through to this product. So we're just outside, and if you have any questions, please feel free to come by. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you.
Hi. Just wanted to check what's the, when you start the campaign, or when anybody starts a campaign, what's the minimum spend that you see in this kind of a region, where you say does it need to be an X K $1,000 campaign? What is that? What is the requirement when you get into this kind of a campaign?
All right. So first of all, it depends on the country. All right. Depends on the phase of the app that you're in. Is it a new app going to be released soon? Or is it an app that's already 3 months, 6 months down the line? All right? And then the country, because the advertising budget that's going to cost you in Japan, for example, and Singapore is very different. I mean, by the way, Japan is like the top, the highest revenue generating country, right, in Asia, or in the world for Android. So to answer your question, there's no one price. It's not like 10,000, it's not like 100,000, etc. It really depends on many other factors. And these factors will be the one that after doing some hearing with you, some discussion, they'll be able to understand what your objectives are, where you want to be, which country, and then we'll be able to give you a simulation and a proposal on that. Yeah. So for example, to give you just an example. In Singapore, for example, it will be some, as a minimum, I won't say in a minimum, so maybe initial spend, you can look at somewhere around $10,000, for example, US dollars. That could be a minimum, like initial spend in Singapore to sort of see any effect on your advertising spend. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. Online. You always start with online, all right? For offline, you can do a event. You can do a small event to gather some core users, gamers to do that, and it shouldn't cost more than a few $1,000s. So again, the phase 1, 2, and 3, you don't do all of them together, obviously. So for 3 is when you are absolutely confident of your app, where it's going to bring you. You already start with monetizing and all, then you move there. You don't start with that.
I have a question.
Sure.
All the case study you show here in Japanese game, but in Southeast Asia, the behavior of end user is so different. The way the game publisher make money is different as well.
Yes.
So do you think with the 3 phases you mentioned on slide, should we can apply the same, or maybe you show any case study in the Southeast Asia?
The 3 phases would be the same, but the methods or the channels used in each one of them would be different. And of course, the amount to be spent, for example, in Singapore versus Thailand versus Japan would be different.
Yep. Exactly the question. Because in the Southeast Asia, the culture is so different. And when the publish the game in the Southeast Asia, you see the end user base will be so segmented.
Yes. The users, end users will be different, exactly. So basically, the amount spent, like phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 would be different from every country.
Okay. So that means you have to implement different.
You have to implement it differently. That's why I said there's no one size that fits all.
Do you have any case study in Southeast Asia?
We do. I don't have it now here, okay. But if you're happy to come by our booth, I'll show you, I'll explain to you in different views, yeah.
One more question.
Sure.
In terms of rates of how much you spend in each phase, so like, is it like divided in thirds, or do you invest more if it's a new app? Do you invest more if it's like an app that's already been around and now needs to get retention? Like, what's like the amount and rate of the things you need to invest?
Usually you invest more when the app is making money for you. Okay, if the app is making money for you already, then you invest more. That's when you have phase 2. So phase 2 is where you actually see money coming in, growth, monetization. You know how much you're making in. Okay, few $100,000, or is it $1 million, etc. Then you know how much percentage, what the percentage would be to spend on the next thing, right? Give you an example, Super Bowl in the US. So Machine Zone was spending like tens of millions of dollars just for a 30-second clip. But why would they spend that? Because they made some money out of it, right? Clearly, it's not because they have deep pockets or anything. It's because they made money out of it, and they are able to spend it. So when you come up with a new app, would you spend that kind of money? No, you wouldn't. So you always start small. But when I say small, so it depends on which app, which country, and everything again. There's no one size fits all again. So everything is really dependent on the type of game. So are you having a casual game? So if you're having a casual game strategy versus strategy game, action, RPG, it's very different. And which country? So if you're targeting only Singapore, then it's just probably a smaller amount of money. But nobody focuses only on Singapore or only in Malaysia or Thailand, right? In Southeast Asia, you'll be looking at Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and then Vietnam and Philippines after that, right? And then in Japan, you have Japan, big enough market just on its own. Hong Kong, Taiwan will always be one group, because actually Macau as well, because that's traditional Chinese. And you have mainland China, which is simplified Chinese, and you have Korea, which is Korean. So all these markets are very unique on its own. And that's why we have offices in all these major countries to give the necessary local expertise and advice and experience to share the experience. Yep.
So Choy,
Please come by. I'll be happy to share more with you.
Choy, I have a question for
Sure.
you. How does your icon A/B testing process work?
Okay, so the icon A/B testing, for example, we have the dashboard, the platform for you to, you have an initial icon, for example. You can register as many icons as you like. So I gave the example of 4 other icons, A, B, C, and D. And then you do a free cross promotion across all the apps in our network, all right? And then the ones that have the highest CVR, conversion rate, shows, or highest CTR, click-through rate, shows you that icon A/B testing.
Okay, so in this case, people are actually clicking on the apps. You're not
Yes,
showing
clicking
it as an
and
app,
then
yeah.
installing. So clicking is the click-through rate,
Yeah.
and installing, and these are all for free because it's cross-promotion, and that's CVR.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I think
Yes.
that's something that all developers
We
find
need
very
it,
useful.
yeah, because in the past, like I said, in the past, when we look at the top rankings, we see 14 apps, so they were really tiny on the screen that nobody cares about the colors, about the creative designs, etc. But now it's only 6, so it's really more prominent and significant.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have. If you want to talk to Choy, he's available here. They have a booth outside after his talk. Anyway, thank you so much, Choy.
Thank you so much, Gabby. Thank you.